Welcome to The Incredible Messenger, a blend of real-world stories, expert insights, and proven strategies that keep our families, communities, and cities safe and healthy. Moving beyond rhetoric and politics to practical solutions and community safety, here's your host, Jonathan McMillan.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to The Incredible Messenger. I am your host, Jonathan McMillan. As you know by now, the show isn't about surface level conversations. We bring in people who move systems and we talk about what it actually takes to challenge the status quo when it comes to firearm related harm and violence. Today, I'm sitting down with Robert David, the architect behind Project Imagine, a program that pays young people to trade violence for possibility and turns game structure into a blueprint for hope. Most folks chase violence after the trigger's been pulled. Robert starts long before the gun's ever shown up, meeting basic needs, swapping punishment for opportunity, improving the numbers fall when young people get paid to change their own story. I want you to stick around for this episode because this perspective could reset your entire playbook on prevention. Robert, man, like I said, man, I've been checking you out on LinkedIn for a while and I've become a fan and I wanted to make sure we got you on the show so more people can hear about the work you're doing. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for the invitation. Yeah, excited to be on the show. We all in this together, this work.
Yep, that's something I say often. We're all in this together. So learning a little bit more about you, I saw that, you grew up facing the challenges that you now work and strive to change. Uh, tell us more about your story? Like, who is Robert? What is it that you do? And more importantly, why do you do what you do?
It comes from my family. I grew up in southeastern North Carolina, like headed towards the beach near the coast. And my family was one of those families that helped out everybody else, even though they may not have had much. And I saw that my whole life. My mother and grandmother and everybody. My mother was a single mother at 20 years old. I grew up, my dad was here and there. And I grew up, with aunts and uncles helping out. But one thing that I knew was that I was getting in my situation, but I didn't know how to get out of it. And so I made some turns trying to chase that dream, trying to chase whatever vision I had inside of me. And I made some bad decisions. And as I went on through life, I've always had this desire to make people better. And so as I got older, I just wanted to help people, man. And that's just who I am. It could have been another way for me, like many people who do this work. It could have easily been another way. I kind of joke with my children. I said, you guys should be giving me a medal. I was a young Black man. I made it through the 90s.
Right. Dude, jumping off there, oftentimes when I tell my story, I tell people, the first thing I tell people when I tell my story is my age. Right now I'm 52 years old, and from the time I turned 50, I recognize that I lived essentially two lifetimes as a young Black man growing up in the 80s and 90s. That narrative was that we weren't going to live beyond 25, or if we did, we were going to be incarcerated and all of those things that help define what they would call us as an endangered species. And at 25 years old, I was in prison, right? And I'm very glad to be here. When I turned 50, I think I had put on one of my social media bios, I said, I'm a 50-year-old Black man, which means I'm invincible.
No doubt. And that's why I feel, with this work, man, I have an obligation. I have an obligation. I tell my friends back home, I said, we're the old guys under the tree of knowledge. I don't know if anyone had a tree of knowledge in their own town. They might have had a corner of knowledge or whatever. But we're them old dudes dropping nuggets and wisdom, and we got to hold up to the standard for the next generation, even if we feel like, which is a narrative which is not true, that this is the worst generation ever, but it's not.
No doubt.
But that's the narrative they run, like these guys are so bad. Nah, we still have a responsibility to reach back, man, try to help these guys. Not even reach back, but we got a responsibility to go stand with them in the mud and show them how to get the mud off their shoes,
I love that perspective of standing with them in the mud. One of my good friends here in Denver, he started an organization called the Big Homies. It's recognizing that we those of us who made it and are still here have that obligation that you spoke of. And homies is an acronym for helping our men inspire each other's success. And so we're working with not even just the next generation, the generation beyond that, with young men who are usually under 30 years old, usually under 25 years old, all the way down to 12. And they're dealing with these challenges, and we owe it to them to work with them through those challenges, right?
That's responsibility.
So a little bit about your background. What is it that you're doing now? Like what is on your day to day? Like I know you have Project Imagine, so talk to me about that.
Yeah,
What
so
that is.
that's my job. Right now, I'm in the capacity of Robert David, consultant, change agent, community liaison kind of thing. But on my job, I work for the city of Danville. I work in the city manager's office as a violence prevention manager. So I
Okay.
was afforded the opportunity. I came here in 2018. Danville is a city in Southwest Virginia. At the time, I think in 2016, 17, they were having so many homicides per capita. It was just as much as Chicago based on the population. And it was young black men just down in the street, man, really just kind of running wild, and they didn't know what to do. I was able to, didn't even know the job was here and kind of fell into it. And I took my years of experiences from every aspect of my life, and I created this model based on the assessment and the information and the cries from the people in the community. And it started off as a workforce readiness model. I don't know if you're familiar with WIA funds. I can never.
Yeah,
We
owe
owe
it.
funds. Here in Danville, during that time, I was told by some of the workers that they were sending back anywhere from $75,000 to $150,000 in WIA funds because they couldn't reach the population because they didn't know how scared, whatever the case may be. And I understand it because not everybody's made for the street. So when I came in, I kind of talked to them about money. I talked to the city manager. We created some positions that would give these young people some self-efficacy, not just cutting grants, although that might have been one job because not everybody's made for the public. But we had them working in the Welcome Center, the library, places like Parks and Rec, and got the young people from probation and from the community. And I just pulled that together. When I came into the job, they gave me this huge office, and I had this beautiful mahogany three-piece dance man, leather chairs, but I had no budget. But where I come from, this is what we do. We make bricks without straw. That's just who I am and where I come from. So collaboratively pulling those people together and working together, man, in 2018, I came in June. We got the cohort going in September. And it's been going ever since. Since then, we have enrolled over 200 youth. Not impacted because we know a lot of kids, they may not have been enrolled in the program, but we definitely impacted a lot of kids. Because we don't really turn anyone away. If you don't meet the criteria, we still help you navigate the system.
Well, let me ask you, how are you recruiting youth in that high number? Because I've known that we owe programs, and I've seen it here in Denver in the same situation where they couldn't get enough people to participate in whatever program, whether it was a reentry program or a summer program or whatever it is. What's the secret to your success?
Initially, when I came here, I'm not from here, and like most cities, this is very much if I don't know you, I don't rock what you said. So what I did when I came in my first day, I went to the community, and I connected with the matriarchs and patriarchs, the candy lady, the old folk, and they would have community events where they're doing jumpy housing, hot dog, and I would just go sit and stand and just speak. And eventually people talked to me, and then I got some returning citizens. They wanted to know what was up because their city had been used and everybody had come through. I mean, everyone had come through the city and do these great things. So I had a meeting with them. And because they saw me out in the community, because I was places that no one else would go. It was some areas that the police had said they're not going there anymore. That community engagement doesn't work. So I was in those areas. And people saw that. And so I initially got referrals from Probation, the church, and then just the community. But now, because of my staff, I did that for 3 years, and then in 2021, I was able to hire some staff. And my staff were, they're from the community. They'd had some major distresses, minor distresses, they're credible messengers. And now we get referrals from everywhere. We've had gang members, a big homie send referrals because here's the thing. there's always going to be some little dudes out there that's just in the way. They're causing problems. They put heat on you. So my staff, had these connections, and they would say, look, give us those guys. And man, we would have guys like that mandate that these guys come to the program. That's where we are now, because we all understand in this work, it's not illegal to be in the gang. That's your coaching. That's who you are. Just don't be acting. So we never ask anybody. So when the big old sending these guys, they're not getting necessarily saying, you dropping your flag and getting out of the gates. They're just saying you in the way. You could probably be better just going to school and getting a job. We'll still associate with you because you're from the neighborhood, but you're just in the way.
And you just dropped a whole sermon right there. And I know I already hear people who are going to have criticism because they feel like a violence reduction program or a violence prevention program should be preaching or advocating for leaving the gang. You've said something that many of us who have been in the work understand that, again, one, you said it's not legal to be in a gang. Number two, it's sometimes part of a culture. We are tribal people, right? And having a place of belonging is a human, is just normal for a human being. We want to be accepted and have a place of belonging and have the security and strength that comes from a brotherhood. And then there's others who read that as condoning criminal behavior when that's not necessarily what it's about at all.
What I'm condoning is the nurturing of the positive aspects of having a sense of belonging, which is on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you're telling me that if I grow up in this culture, because gangs are culture, if you go by the pure definition of culture, gangs are culture. If I grow up in this culture and I'm 9, 10, and I develop my beliefs and my core beliefs, and I decide to not be active, then I'm still a criminal. If that's the case, we need to deal with the Confederacy. We need to deal with the frats. We need to deal with the Boy Scouts. Because all of those things, by definition of gangs, federal definition, outside of the criminal activity, they all line up under a name. They all line up under a symbol. They all line up with colors. It's just a criminal aspect. So if we could take a young man to embrace his unity and still love his community and do great things, but not the activity of shooting and committing crimes, we don't have a criminal. We have a community change agent.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So what got you to that point of that perspective to understand that the culture is not the problem, it's the criminal activity, and maybe we should then embrace what they already have and then amplify it with some of the needs, like you said, the protective factors.
Well, look around in everyday life. What if they try to take your culture? What if I tried to go to Native American or Spanish speaking and say, no, you can't talk like that. You can't dress like that. You can't act like that. But you have to be sensitive to a person's culture. And eventually they will assimilate to whatever they're going to be because they're all individuals. Brother, I know they've already taken the culture. Walk is worldwide. Colors are worldwide. Gang paraphernalia is worldwide. Gang dressing worldwide. So they've taken pieces of the culture and monetized it. But yeah, for these young people who are coming from these places who grew up in it and believe that family is everything, but they still have some strong beliefs in how they're supposed to get money and be successful. For those young people, they want them to drop that, but it's being monetized. Here's what intervention is, and I talk about this. Gangs are ecosystem. Just like every other immigrant that has come to this country that has not found a way to get money and to get what they need, they create an ecosystem, self-sustaining. Gangs are no different. In order to have an effective intervention, you have to duplicate that ecosystem through collaborative part. And you can't snatch anyone out of a gang. It is a transition. Because they have a core belief, in the words of maybe Christianity, it is a deliverance, a transition of. My definition of soul is mind, will, and emotion. A person who has embraced that criminal lifestyle has to change their mind, will, and emotion to believe that what you're giving them is just as valuable as what they're letting go. You have to create something like that.
Absolutely.
And that's what it.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep going. Keep going. I want to hear more about the components that you're bringing to these young people, because you're dropping knowledge right now. There. Keep going.
So one of the things I came up with that I began to question is about Maslow. Everybody understands that Maslow, they say if you get food and clothing, then you can move on, you can progress. Motivation, right? Well, one of the models that I use, that I come up with, is that when you join a game, Maslow is not linear, it's cylindrical. Because the moment you jump in, Maslow says that you may never reach self-actualization, meaning you know who you are, right? When you join the game, brother, when you're really in it, you know who you are. You know how I can tell? Because you're no longer Bobby. You're a little Nico from 3rd Street. That's who you are.
The identity that you have developed and claimed for yourself.
Right. And that is encompassed in a game. So a game meets all of Maslow's needs all at once. It gives them food and shelter. It gives them safety. It gives them sense of belonging. It gives them love. It gives them self-actualization. Immediately, the moment they get jumped in, they get all of that. So if we're going to compete, we have to create a system to do the same thing. How do we get... So, okay, we got the food bank. We need that as a collaborative partner. We need mentors. We need that as a collaborative partner. We need faith-based or something for self-advocacy. We need that for a collaborative partner. We need to create something, whether it's a collaboration with law enforcement or local entities, to create a safe place. You need housing. No one entity can fight this system because it's a system. That's why you see programs fail. My definition is programs are made to fix a problem. Systems have the answer embedded in.
For the benefit of my audience, in order to address both the health and the safety needs at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, you have to build out ecosystems that are going to address and provide for a person's sense of health and safety. When you talk about the systems that the young people who you work with are up against, I know at one point you were a part of that system as a probation officer. So I'm curious about that journey. Like, how did you get on that pathway? And then, like, what was that experience like? And what led you to, nah, this isn't what I want to do anymore?
Well, even then, I've always done this work. I'm a believer that you have to work a job to fund your dream. So I graduated college, business administration. I never wanted to be in criminal justice for obvious reasons. But it started off kind of funny. While I was in college, I started bouncing for rent. So I started doing security. And then I took a job. I know I got it made, everything kind of swayed. And then I got a job while I was in college as a correctional officer. I worked there a couple of years. It's just been in my blood. I went to the military. And then when I went there, they put me in charge of the bad boy thing, the guys who were about to get kicked out. And then I got out of the military and I got a security job for a little bit. And then I started working with juvenile probation. When I went to California at 25, it's because at the time in North Carolina where I was, they didn't really have foreign gangs. You had neighborhoods, I'm from the North. I'm from the North, y'all. So we didn't get along with the guys from South Hamlet. I was from North. So when I went to California, what I started volunteering at alternative school. And what I saw with these young men being abused and manipulated. Everyone called these guys bad. I'm like, this guy's cool, dude. These like people I knew back home. So even though I started doing juvenile probation, adult probation in California, I still on my off time. And then I was in the program that I had, that was formed by my mentor, Mr. Dad Bill. He's probably a 40-year-old kind of white dude, man. He probably would have never thought he'd been my mentor, but he showed me how to come from the preventive, interventive side, even though that wasn't a name yet out there. And that's where I cut my teeth and I learned. And I've always done this work. No matter what job I had, when I came back, I was human resources. But on my free time, I'm out in the street. I'm working probation parole. I own a mental health facility where I work with gang members and things like that. But I was still always out in the street, always seeing the need. For me, this is just who I am. No matter what I do, like I said, I was just blessed enough for a job to come where I could be me and use all my skills and abilities and do a job.
Yeah, brother, again, I am a reflection of your story. And likewise, I had she's still a mentor of mine. 20, 30 years ago, 40 some odd old white woman, little diminutive white woman, worked in the criminal justice system, started the first diversion program out here in Denver. And I learned so much from her about the science of behavior change, right? About like the Maslow's piece. And she introduced me to that. She introduced me to the stages of change and motivational interviewing. So that when I really began the phase 2 of me doing intervention work and being out there as an interrupter, I could bring my lived experience, right? My time in the streets and jail, but then I could also add that social work lens to it and understand these behavioral models. So yeah, that's really dope that you bring that. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
use all that, bro. I use all that. I use all that stuff. I use Bandera's theory of self-efficacy.
Mhm.
I use about a relationship theories based on that. So everything that I do, cognitive behavior therapy, but back in the
Mhm.
day, I was an instructor for cognitive behavior intervention. So I took all those things. Matter of fact, I have a book called Stand Up and Breathe that uses stages of change to explain how to recover from failure systemic in a process, not just because most time when we feel, we don't even know what we feel, and we just do the same thing over. We feel 4 more times. Now, I set it up so now you know where you are. So all the, like I said, everything I've done in my life, including my life experience, being able to connect with people, I use that. I use all of that. Yeah.
I'll definitely put a link here in the episode so that people can follow it, find it, and purchase it and learn more about it. What's the name of the
Yeah.
book?
Stand up and breathe. 4 steps to recover from failure.
Okay. Stand Up and Breathe. 4 steps to recover from
Yeah.
failure. You know, as we've been talking, I'm hearing very clearly that the work is just a part of who you are. And I think that's true for a lot of us who get into the work. At least, well, I'll say a lot of us, that oftentimes there's not a clear delineation between what I do for work and what I do as a mentor or as a father or as a community member because Saturday you're still in the community that you work in, right? And so sometimes it's difficult. I would like for you to share more about some of the other hats that you wear. I know you say Project Imagine is your job, but you actually here in a different capacity. So talk more about that.
And so I'm a subject matter expert consultant, helping out other cities. I do staff training and development for community violence intervention, relationship training, motivational leadership, all those things that are related to the work, but then I branch out from that. So something that I did that was new was the school system wanted some clinical intervention on how to deal with young gang men. I was in Northern Virginia. They didn't have a clue. Being able to explain to them, number one, the, the same way you would intervene with any other kid, they're not different, but I understand what they were saying. So being able to talk to them from my background, I have a master's in professional counsel. So being able to pull from that and know understanding what they were looking for and answer those questions for them was really huge. So I do a lot of different things when it comes to training. Even in my job now, I'm not so much out on the street. And I think this is what most community violence intervention, especially grassroots, feel is that connection between the funding and the work. I'm fortunate enough to be sitting in that place. That's another, even though it's my job, it's also one of the hats I have to because I have to be an interpreter. I have to be able to go from cornbread to caviar. I'm not out on the street as much. Sometimes maybe not at all because I got to deal with the other side. But at any moment, I could be out there because there's no fear about that because I understand the nuances and people know me in a different capacity. I think I've gone from the big, the guy on the street that everybody knows. If we can go back to kind of street ideology, I'm going from the corner boy to the man. If you understand what I'm saying. I'm like, what's the movie Paid in Full? I know the young crowd might not know what that is, but I'm going from the dry cleaners, but still can't stand connected. And now the influence is different. Still using the same strategies, but on a different group of people. But I'm definitely seeing a lot of programs kind of become stagnant because they don't know how to have those conversations with the funders. Not that they're not doing the work, Not that they're not good people, not that it's not a good organization, but like anywhere, every level is a different culture. And you can't take street culture to funders, to city hall, or to I always say that when you're talking about funding on that level, they don't recognize emotion, they recognize measure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
KPIs, right? Evaluation measures,
exactly.
right? You can feel in your heart that it worked.
Right,
You might even know that it
right,
works, but unless you have done the evaluation and can show the hated word, I'm hoping that people would stop hating the word data and begin to embrace it for the power that it has and be able to share their stories both qualitatively and quantitatively, right? So I hear exactly what you're saying as a person who, uh, I say this very humbly, went from gang member to running the state office of violence prevention. I had to evolve multiple times in each new environment and circumstances that I found myself in. I had not planned on asking you this, but because we share those similarities. I've lost people along the way, right? Because people didn't understand the evolution or even the necessity of having to move differently. Not funny, like you're always still authentic to yourself, but you still have to make different moves, right? And if people aren't willing to grow and evolve with you, then I mean, you could drag them along, but they're just going to be dead weight. And that when you're on a purpose driven mission, dead weight will harm everybody you're trying to help. Here's the question. As you have been on that evolution and found yourself in rooms where power, money, influence for the greater good, not for you, but for the greater good is happening. Um, how has that impacted your personal life?
here's what I always say. If I understand my purpose, I don't need rules. My purpose provides rails for me. So based on what I'm supposed to do in my life, dictates how I operate. So when I get in those rooms, I understand who I am and where I'm going. So I have to kind of put myself in a place of understanding that this is not going to be beneficial. Saying this, being here, or doing this is not going to be beneficial for the greater good of the community and the world. And what I mean by that is, because I work for the city manager and because of the success that the program had, and I come into an environment where everybody, people like to have get together, brunches and lunches, and they want you to come, ribbon cuttings and things like that. I took a stand early on. I can't do that, and I explain why, man. For my personal connection, but when I was here by myself and trying to show the community that I was 10 toes down because they'd already been abused many times by some fast talking guys, especially black guys coming in, taking the money, leave, and abusing them. I couldn't be seen in that light. I couldn't let the community see me rubbing elbows with the same people that they felt had abused them. And that's my standing now. Now, is it lonely? Yeah. But young men not laying in the street. If I need a friend, I got a dog. But those are the sacrifices I think that are not talked about in this business. Because I'm telling you, and I tell my staff this because I believe in transformational leadership. I bring my staff up, try to bring my staff up to a level where they, with their own personal lives, their own personal skills, can be amplified so they can do greater things. And I tell them that one of the things I've seen over my 30 years in this business is that if you want to destroy an organization or the work of an entity, begin to look at someone else's job. Don't worry about.
Can I add something to that? Their pockets.
They be pocket watching either. Don't worry about if I'm not out in the street like that anymore. That's your job. Man, I'm 55 years old. The only thing you really should be concerned with getting from me is wisdom. Whatever you've seen, I've seen it 20 times. You might have different experience, whether you're incarcerated or whether you're in the street longer, whatever. But when it comes to strategy and structure, I've got more than you. And I've seen this all over when I did mentor in North Carolina, when I did in the when I've done stuff in the community. People begin to wonder why you're not doing what they're doing. They forget their role. And that's when it becomes, we either get that kind of separation and the work becomes sloppy.
You're dropping a lot of gems right
Brother,
now.
I got 30 years in this game. That's what I'm telling you. I got 30 years in this game. And that's why I'm seeing all that and how that works. And another thing that impacts the work, I talk to my staff about this, and I've been supporting my orientation. Like I said, because we are successful, I said, you have to be prepared for the shot. And you have to know your role. Not everybody's going to be in the paper. It doesn't matter. Everybody's got to play their role. But if you play your role, you can still benefit on a personal level from the experience and the connections and things like that. But unfortunately, because this work is done by a lot of grassroots people who have never had the spotlight, when they see someone else getting it, they feel like they've been slighted. And that's not the case. Wait your turn. Wait your turn. Same principle. It's the same thing. The way I look at this work is for its principles. Principles never change. Only method. So I've taken my experiences that I had in the street, taking those same principles and applying them to this work. Change the method. So if you think about the street, it's the same stuff that happens out in the street. If you
Absolutely.
If you're out in the street and y'all start together doing whatever, and then you blow up or whatever, you can almost count somebody's about to try to rob.
Absolutely.
Same person.
You know, that little small white lady I mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the best lessons she ever taught me is when I was doing street outreach is that when you're working with somebody who's involved in gangs or the culture, they tend to operate off of what she would call MET, M-E-T, money, ego, turf, right? And if you could identify where on this spectrum of how much each one of those things motivated somebody, then that's where using motivational interviewing and others, like you can begin to help them develop discrepancy about their actions versus what motivates them, right? With that money, ego, turf. And then after she taught me like the basic concept of that, she said the cold part is it's applicable to almost anyone else in the Western Hemisphere of the United States.
Yes.
Whether you in a corporate boardroom, whether you in a school, where like everybody is motivated to some degree around money, ego, turf. And when she taught me that blew my mind. I'm hearing you say something very, very, very similar. I appreciate you highlighting that.
It's the same. In order to use work, you have to evolve into that. I mean, it's fun being in the street and being in the mix, but you have to evolve because we all get older and the generations change. And you have to be able to pivot.
I want to pivot with your wisdom, big homie, OG, old head. As you're doing this work, right, and you're in a space, again, I told you at the top of the show, I'm hoping that this show develops and becomes a space where people who want to get involved in the work, they may not be involved. They may not have 30 years in like you and I, right? They may just come across Google and be like, they typed in how to do gang intervention. This show pops up. What is something, actually, I want to say, what are 3 things that you would tell somebody who is wanting to get into this work or just starting to get into this work?
Number 1, be authentic. Number 2, develop trust. And then number 3, look for the need, because look for the need in the community. That's where it starts. If you don't know what you're doing, if people are hungry, try to connect them with a feeding program in an authentic and true way. Look at people as human. That's the beginning, not what they've done or where they are. When you meet someone now, you have to meet these young people. I call it energy to energy, light to light, spirit to spirit. And you have to start on the base level and allow them to speak in their native tongue. So if you're offended because they GD'd and every other word, you can't do this work. You have to drop your own kind of core beliefs of what you think is right or wrong and accept that you are for that moment you're talking to that young person, you have to act as though you are a friend. you're in a different culture. And so whatever preconceived notions you had, you need to drop those, because at that moment you have to respect young people. And now, in our age, respect is different, but it's not. This is my definition of respect, and this is how. You tell me if I'm wrong. This is how young people deal with you. That's why they don't have any problem knocking out some old person, a woman, a preacher, or anybody if they talk to them wrong. You know what I mean? Disrespect.
Mhm.
Respect to me is the prefix is re, means to do over. Spect comes from the root word from the word spectacle. Spectacle is your root. Spectacle to look. So it's saying you have to, respect means to re-look. That means that you have to look past my exterior and look at my purpose and my humanity. If I respect you, that means I've looked at you. If you're going to be in this work, if you're going to be in this work, you have to look at every kid. I don't care how many bodies I got. I don't care what they're going through. You got to look at every kid twice. Because the first time you look at them, your morals are going to pop up. But the second time, the humanity should.
Brother, that is beyond wise. I love it.
And just looking at them as human. So our conversation would never, the initial conversation should never be adult child. It should be human to human.
So with that, I know you have used terminology about people who are doing this work in community violence intervention as being more than just mentors, right? And showing up as what you call conduits. Can you talk more about what you mean by that?
Certainly more than just mentors. Those individuals should be a pipeline to resources. By no means can we do everything and provide every need, but we should be able to tap into outside resources to get what that young person needs. We have a system, we have a sports-based youth development where we do soccer, but we don't do it ourselves. We'll tap into the community college. We have workforce development, the 4-year college. We have workforce development that has welding and forklift. We don't do that ourselves if that's what they want to do, truck time. We bridge it. What we do is we remove the barriers and open up better lines of communication. And even in school, I can't tell you how many expulsions and expenses we've overturned because we were the conduits. Because what I mean by that is we're that support system. Because everyone is always talking about what parents need to do, and you need to go back. When I was raised, it's never going back to that. So we have to create that through collaborative efforts in the community. And that's what that conduit is. If Roger can imagine, no matter what a kid wants, we're going to funnel it too. If they want to play the violin, we're going to find someone. We have one kid who want to be an actor. We're going to find them. And then we'll try to find the resources or money or try free, whatever the case may be. But the key is to allow these young people to get the opportunity to have these resources and jobs, whatever the case may be, and break those barriers down.
I love the fact that in your answer, you talked about multiple levels of a large ecosystem, right? You talked about the systems level, but you also talked about a level that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge or even hold accountable, if I want to be real with it, is at that community level. What is it going to take to connect young people to whatever it is that is needed in order to reduce the risk that they're going to be involved in impacted by violence, right? Yeah, a lot of the blame is shifted over to the parents. I see no point in blame game because there's no solutions in the blame.
Right. That's why you have to create that ecosystem with aunts and uncles, and in the community, the aunts and uncles could be anyone. I say a lot of I don't even say controversial, but maybe innovative things that people have not got to the innovative mindset yet. Like aunt, uncle, which is already true in the neighborhood anyway. And aunt and uncle might be that dope boy who ain't causing any crime, who's breaking the law, but that's between him and the police. But he wants to donate some money so these young kids can eat. Do you turn that away because of your beliefs? If so, I'm saying, do you turn that away? If so, then you better kind of judge every way you get money. If you're going to if you're not going to accept their money, and what I mean by accepting their money, if they do a donation to whatever organizations on a legal check and it's their money, do you accept it? If it's going to meet a need. But see, they're part of the community. Those things, people have to kind of understand however you navigate that. And by no means am I talking about doing anything illegal. My point is everyone is, it's no different than taking $1 from the guy who struggles with alcoholism that sits on the corner of Walmart every day. He's part of the community as well. So the community is more than just the people that you see. The community is the candy lady. The community is the old guy that sits, the old guys that sit at Hardee's and drink coffee and eat sausage biscuits every day. All that is a community. But we don't look at that as a community because many times we don't know how to put them in their place. That's why positions like yours and mine, it is our responsibility to assist individuals on how to structure that so that everybody can be involved.
So you led me right to my next question. If there's somebody in whatever city it is in the USA, right, who's like, I love what he's talking about, where do I start? If I'm looking to build out this ecosystem, let's assume that this person works for the city or for the county, and this person wants to start to build out that first layer of the ecosystem in the community level. Is there any advice that you have for them?
So with the matriarchs and patriarchs, if they're not from that community, if they are from that community, I will pull those individuals together. You don't need a ton of people because you're going to get a ton of suggestions. Find out what the need is. Get the trust of the community. Get the trust of the community, and just kind of move forward on those things. Find a couple of kids. I'm trying to do the whole community. I wouldn't advise doing a big jumpy house and hot dog things because we both know that they come and eat your hot dogs and you don't reach the population that you should reach. So it has to be more personal. Go to the community center and set up something about job information. But first, you got to get that trust with the individuals who are going to co-sign for you. It's no different, as the young boys say, checking in the city. But when you go in those neighborhoods, you got to check in with the matriarchs and patriarchs, because whoever's selling the ice in the bag of chips and the pickle with the peppermint, whoever, they know the whole community. Check in with them. I have this thing. I got a couple of books, man. You can go to Amazon on my author's page, and my name is on it. But I got a book called Gangs versus Kings. And I wrote this book for faith-based organizations so they understand the spiritual side of what gangs really are. And once you understand that, you can address it different from the spiritual side. At the end of the book, I talk about no budget workforce development model. How the community can start their own workforce development model without helping anyone. Most areas have a church on each corner, right? Most neighborhoods. Okay, you take 4 churches. I call the model 4-in-1. Take 4 churches. Each one of those churches, they get about 10. How many people? Because everybody want to do outreach. About 10 people want to do outreach, right? All right. You gotta have that interrupter, or you gotta have that guy who's in the street. So take the guy who, did a little time and fresh off drugs, and he want to preach every Sunday. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Get him to be the connect in the community. The same model, right? He's outreach work. He has that reputation. He's a credible message. Get him to connect in the community. Each church gets about 10 people. That's 40 people, right? Every Sunday, each church raises only $50. That's it. Amongst the whole congregation, not the 10 people, whole congregation, now you got $200. You got the dude, he's credible messenger. You have him connect with the family and the young cat. Get him to talk, tell the young cat, look, we're going to give you a job. We're going to pay you whatever, $10 an hour. You can work after school, you work 20 weeks. We're going to pay you every Friday. But you clean up in the community. You clean up around the house. You get the broken glass up and all that stuff. And this is who's paying you. You have that credible messenger come to the 4 pastors. You don't want to overwhelm them. You don't want the whole church. But 4 pastors, 1 pastor. And say, look, we love you. We're going to pay you, and guess what else? Those 10 people from each church, we're going to make sure that you get to school. We're going to make sure your little sister get to school. We're going to connect you with the food bank and your mother. I know she let a food stamps lap, but we're going to work with that because one of our members works for DSS. Now, bro, how much does that cost?
Zero. $200 amongst 40 people.
We're not even 40, the whole church.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So if each church has 50 people, you're talking about 50 cents a person.
Yeah.
And you created a workforce readiness model, a workforce model that builds in self-efficacy in this kid. He feels loved. You've given him a sense of hope. He's connected to the community. And you know how we are. If we take pride in something, he ain't gonna let us know the homeless man. You can't be busting that bottle over there. I gotta clean that up next week. Okay. So people say, what? Go ahead, brother.
I'm laughing at the, not in a bad way, at the simplicity of it, right?
Yeah.
Because we know, you and I know, and people who have been involved in this work know that the number of young people that are in a gang, it's a small percentage of any city's overall youth population. The number of young people in that gang who carry guns are a smaller percentage of that. And the number of people in that gang who carry a gun with the intention of popping somebody maliciously, that's a very small percentage
Very
of
small.
the total city's population.
Right.
And I've said it time and time again, if we can focus on those 2 to 3, I'm gonna say maybe 5% of youth, and that's pushing it, right?
Right.
That are out there as the trigger pullers, and with a model that you just talked about, it's over.
In each community. Because guess what? After about 2 weeks, and that young guy getting paid twice, and then getting some new Jordans. His friends are gonna say, man, what are you doing every after? What you doing, man? I want to do it. And so even for the older people, and this is how you build this community buy-in and the safety for the community. So my universal name for older women is Miss Ladd. So Miss Ladd is 80 years old, right? 85, and she lives at the end of the street. Miss Laddie can cook. So Miss Laddie said, what can I do? The dude who's a credible messenger, Miss Laddie cooks a cake. The credible messenger goes get the cake, takes it down to the kid. Hey, Miss Laddie love you, man. Miss Laddie gave you this cake. It's really hard to go bust her windows out when you know Miss Laddie love you. That's the mom.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Simplistic, no money. All it takes is the village that everyone talks about. That's all it takes. 50 cents a person every week can save hundreds of lives if everyone does it in their own community. And it's not a strain on anyone because everyone can help however they can help, and not everybody has to be on the street. But you know what happens? That young man knows 40 different people in the community. He has a relationship with 40 different adults.
And a caring, trusted adult, my audience is going to know what I'm about to say right now because I say it every episode. A caring, trusted adult is the number one protective factor to reduce the risk of a young person being involved or impacted by violence. Also, on the flip side of that, Miss Laddie, that's her name? Miss Laddie? Caring, trusted adult or a connection with somebody is a protective factor for senior L's, right? When they're old and isolated and don't have family around anymore, connecting Miss Laddie to one of these young people or helping her find a purpose within their community is going to reduce the risk that she gets ill and nobody knows about it. Mr. Bill, who, you know, he's going to be the opposite of Miss Laddie. He's going to be the male version. That he gets hopeless and decides to pull his firearm and take his own life, right? Caring, connecting people within the community, building that ecosystem out, we'll use that word again, is the solutions to the problems that we're talking about. Thank you, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's complex. And if someone hears this, they can really start this within a week if everyone agrees. The hard part is the collaboration among faith-based organizations.
The hard part is the collaboration amongst the faith-based organizations, the community-based organizations, the schools and the systems. You literally just led me to my next question for you. And we're going to be wrapping up in just a second here. But I want to ask you this. At the systems level, if you have a city manager, a mayor, director of public safety, what is the thing that you tell them the first thing that they need to do? They want to reduce their numbers, their homicide and non-fatal injury numbers within their cities. What's the first thing they need to do?
But because they understand numbers, I would go to assessment, because most cities have done an assessment. And from that assessment, I will talk about whether it's workforce, whether providing more resources. It's always, for the most part, it's always going to be that. Providing more research, not just providing, because the school system uses that term, and many other social services, wraparound. I'm not talking about wraparound services, because you can wrap something around something that's not be connected. I'm talking about creating, if you would, like a wheel where the youth is in the middle, and then you have spokes or pipes coming to that youth, unhindered, no barrier. That's what has to be done. I don't care what city, where you're going. I had an opportunity. I was chosen to do a foreign exchange. I'll be going to Sweden in September. And I'm talking to those guys, and they're operating like it's the 90s over there. Well, they're really, it's like back there. They're just second generation of gang activity. But they, as I talk to them, it's the same thing. They have people from what they call them immigrants from other countries who are not connecting to the resources, even though all the resources are provided. So they've created their own ecosystem where gunfire is currency. And so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you go. That is always going to be the key. If I can get resources to you, of course, in some it's not going to take because it's everywhere. But if I can get resources to you without barriers and without bias, then you're going to have a better community. That's just human nature.
When you say resources, like at that city, county level, who is providing those resources?
Community agency, whether it be healthcare, whether it be food, whether it be the school system, whether it be fair treatment in school, fair education, educational opportunities outside the norm that may fit these particular individuals. All those things, anything you can think of, social services, being able to, because there's a level of intimidation over the years that people feel when they go into these buildings. That's unspoken. That's trauma. And we can get in that talking about that. And then culturally, many cultures, especially people of color, I'm going to come the first time to hear what you have to say. But the second time, I want what I want. I'm not coming again. And so they end up missing appointments because they feel like they're, trauma. They're getting run around. But when you have those condoms, they're able to navigate through those things like making the appointment 3 months away or not returning the email or things like that. In my position, the way we do that is I tell my staff to go ahead, and if they don't do it, then I call directors, because we're going to break these barriers, respectfully, professionally, in order, in structure. But we have a process of breaking barriers, and that's what has to happen. I don't care where you are. I was at a conference and I was talking to a young lady, and she was workforce over a reservation, Washington State. Same problem. Resources, but there's no trust. So you become hopeless.
A hopeless person is a reckless person.
And when I talk to people about creating these, and when you create these structures, these systems, you have to have hope in it. And the kind of the components of hope, and this is kind of Robert's version, is you have to believe. If you have hope, you got to believe that's possible. Then you have to have a pathway, and then you have to believe it's possible for you. That's why when we deal with youth, they get excited when you're talking about stuff. But if they don't have a pathway, and then if they don't believe it's for them, then they're hopeless.
Right.
If I give you a job across town, and you tell the kid, I'm gonna give you a job, and it's making $45 an hour, and he's all excited. And then you tell him where it's located. He may not say anything to you, but what he does know, that's an op territory. That's an enemy territory. I have to choose between my life and a job. I may not say anything to you, but I'm just not going to show up. And then certain entities may count it as, this young man doesn't want to improve. No, you didn't consider his culture. So he went from having hope because he believed it was possible, but now he didn't have a pathway, so now he's hopeless. So I continue to do what I do.
Man, again, you dropped a lot of the gems right there. Just recognizing that most, if not all, I haven't been everywhere in the U.S., but most, if not all cities have agencies dedicated to providing the resources that people need, right? You have your public health, you have the whole school districts, you have public safety, you have human services and all of those things, departments of economic development and workforce. But like you said, even though they sit within a city, many times they're not coordinated, or they're not coordinated with intention of providing to the people who need those services the most, or who can utilize those services the most. And so there's those barriers that you talked about. I so appreciate you, again, coming on the show and sharing all of this. I'm gonna wrap up this episode with setting it up like this. You know, the show's called The Incredible Messenger, based off of things that I saw on your LinkedIn somehow landed in my algorithm, and I'm thankful for it. I consider you as a credible messenger, right? Because you know what you're talking about, and you've obviously lived it. You've walked the walk. You don't just talk the talk, and if you do talk the talk, you're talking it in multiple ways that people understand and hear what you have to say. So that being said, I always give my guests the opportunity to share as a credible messenger, what is the message that you want people to hear from you?
If you don't love this work, don't do it. If you don't get a tear in your eye when you see someone succeed, you're in the wrong business. Because this is a business that is literally life and death. Biases and moral belief that you feel is greater than the work that you might be doing may cost someone their life, and you can't get that back. I'm sorry, it's don't count in this business. Unless you really love it, people may have a great story. They may have, great past and things like that. Find something else to do, but don't hurt these young people who've already been abused and traumatized and suffered so much. Don't come into this business because it makes you feel good. Because many days it's not. Come to this business because you want to make change. You in it for the long haul.
Boy, you just brought up a whole nother thing I want to ask you. Maybe we'll do another episode one day.
Yeah,
I sure want to ask you about the people who get in this work simply because it feeds their ego. But again, that's another episode. Hey y'all, if you made it this far in the show, that means that you found value in the conversation. I want you to give you all an opportunity to learn more about Robert. And Robert, where can people contact you? I know you got a couple of books. I think there was a children's book that just came out or is coming out.
Yeah, it's out.
Right. That's how I want to connect with you on. So, man, tell the people about what you got and how they can get a hold of you.
So you can go to Amazon. My author's page is Robert David Sr., and it has all my book. I just dropped Policy, The Hippo Stands Up, and what that is based on the stages of change. I wrote a book called, I think we talked about Stand Up and Breathe. The principles of Stand Up and Breathe I placed in Hollis the Hippo. And I did that for K through 3 because this is a time we know that we develop our core beliefs, a lot of them before 7. So we need to have these hard conversations about who you are and what you need to do. And so it's a gang prevention book. Very simple, like I said, a third grader can read or whatever, but it's a great opportunity for a young mother to read to a 3 or 4 year old before they go to school, before they get faced with that. So that's what just dropped in. My other book is called Black Boys on Proud Life. And everything that we talked about is in there, in that book. And it talks about the system, talking about the barriers. But I talked about, now Project Imagine is what I created. My model is the voice model. And out of the voice model, the principles, I created this method. So voice is validation. You have to give the validation, relevant opportunity, sincere intervention, collaboration, and provide, allow them to provide their own expectation. And so those are the principles that I created Project Imagine out of. So Black Boys on Crowd Loud, all this on Amazon. It talks about that from a perspective. Some of the work I did here in Project Imagine when I was faced here with this city being the last Confederate capital, and dealing with those things and just being honest about that and how we have to do this work. But what we talked about today, the systems and ecosystem and Maslow, all that is in there. And then I talk about true collaboration. What does that look like?
I got a lot of traveling coming up in the next few weeks. It looks like I know what I'm reading on the plane. I got about 3-4 books there. It sounds like I'm about to order on Amazon. You can reach out to Robert for whether it's some consulting, coaching, whatever that may be. Robert, I really appreciate you being on the show.
Appreciate
And
you.
man, absolutely.
Now, many times, man, do I have a platform to really talk like this to people who really understand the work. You know, as I said, you have to be cornbread and caviar. So when I do presentations, I have to put some caviar on it.
My hope is that we have caviar eaters listening too.
Yes, without a doubt.
So y'all, to the caviar eaters and the cornbread eaters, if you made it to this point in the episode, I know you found value in it. This was a conversation with all transparency. I didn't know how it was going to go because it's one of the first guests who I have not met and interacted with personally beyond social media. But my radar, my instincts were right to bring him on the show. I found the episode valuable, so I'm sure you did too. And so with that, I ask for you to please share this with your network. Let people know that the Incredible Messenger podcast is bringing value, bringing information, bringing wisdom to those of us out there in the field, whether you have been in this work for 30 years or you just started 30 days ago, or if you haven't even started yet. This is the place to go to learn about what the work really looks like and what you need to do. Also, while you're still listening, do me one last favor. If you listen on Apple, rate the podcast. Please let people know that you value the show or that you appreciate the show by rating it. Share it with your people. All of those things. I'm still working on this closing. So anyway, that's the show, y'all. I appreciate you. I'm out. Peace.